What is stuff, really? What does it even mean for something to be? You know, these aren't just questions for late-night conversations. They are the absolute core of a 2,300-year-old investigation into the fabric of reality itself, led by one of the greatest minds in history, Aristotle. So let's dive into his masterwork, the Metaphysics. Aristotle kicks off this entire monumental work with this one simple, powerful line. And he's not just talking about philosophers in robes. He's talking about you, about me, about everyone. That nagging curiosity, that deep-down desire to figure things out, that's it. That's the engine that drives this entire quest. Okay, so if we're all born with this desire to know, the next logical step is, what's the ultimate thing to know? What's the final why that sits behind everything else? That is the incredible challenge Aristotle sets for himself. To hunt down the first principles, the ultimate causes of everything that is. Now, Aristotle tells us this whole investigation doesn't start with some complicated formula or abstract theory. Nope, it starts with a simple, very human emotion, wonder. It begins when you look at the puzzles right in front of you and you just keep pulling on that thread of curiosity until you're asking the biggest questions about the entire cosmos. And before he presents his own grand theory, Aristotle does something that's just brilliant. He basically becomes a detective. He goes back and systematically looks at all the theories of the philosophers who came before him. He treats their ideas like clues at a crime scene, sifting through the evidence to figure out what they got right and whether explanations just didn't hold up.
To properly investigate reality, Aristotle says you can't just wing it. You need a complete toolkit. He calls this his theory of the four causes. The easiest way to think about it is to imagine building a house. The material cause, that's the wood, the bricks, the nails. The formal cause is the architect's blueprint, the design. The efficient cause is the construction crew, the builders who actually put it together. And the final cause? That's its purpose, to be a home, a shelter. For Aristotle, you can't have a complete explanation of anything without all four.
And this table perfectly shows why Aristotle thought a whole new approach was needed. He argued that all his predecessors only had a piece of the puzzle. The early thinkers, like Thales, they were obsessed with the material cause, what stuff is made of. Empedocles added an efficient cause, his forces of love and strife, but kind of missed the mark on form. And even Aristotle's own brilliant teacher Plato focused so much on the formal cause, his world of perfect ideas, that he struggled to really explain what causes change down here in the physical world. Okay, so we've got our investigative toolkit, the four causes. The next big question is, what are we applying it to? What's the fundamental thing that truly exists? What are the actual building blocks of reality? Aristotle's answer is a concept he called ousia, which we translate as substance. But for him, this word was so much bigger than how we use it today. It's the bedrock reality of a specific, individual thing, what makes this particular tree this tree, and not just a random collection of wood and leaves. For Aristotle, substance is the thing's concrete existence and its essential nature, all wrapped up into one. So here's the crucial distinction, the difference between a substance and its properties, which he called accidents. The substance is Callias, the individual person. That's what he is. The fact that he happens to be musical or that he has white skin, those are accidents. They're properties he has. Those can change and he would still be Callias. The substance is the main event. The accidents just come along for the ride.
But wait a second. This leads to a huge puzzle, right? If a substance like Callias is fundamentally himself, how does he ever change? How does he go from being not musical to musical? To solve this, Aristotle introduces another absolutely brilliant conceptual pair.
First up, there's potentiality. This is the inherent, built-in capacity within a substance to become something else. A block of bronze isn't a statue yet, but based on what it is, it has the potential to be shaped into one. An acorn has the potential to become a mighty oak tree. And the other side of that coin is actuality. This is the finished product, the realized state of that potential. When the sculptor puts down their tools, the finished statue is the actuality of what the bronze could become. The giant oak tree is the actuality of the acorn's potential. And just like that, Aristotle solves the problem of change. For him, change isn't some weird magical leap from one thing to another. It is simply the natural, orderly process of a substance's built-in potential being brought into reality. This single dynamic explains everything from a seed growing into a flower to a person learning how to play the guitar. All right, we now have all the tools. We know to look for the four causes. We know reality is made of substances, and we know that all change is just a move from potential to actual. Now Aristotle is ready to go after the final boss, to track down the ultimate source of it all, the final answer to the question why. This is it. This is the logical climax of the entire investigation. Every single change, every movement, is a potential being made actual by something that is already actual. A sculptor, who is an actual person, creates a statue from potential bronze. But what actualized the sculptor, and what actualized that? If you keep asking that question, you either go backwards forever in an infinite chain, which Aristotle says is totally illogical, or you have to arrive at a first mover, a source of all change that is not itself changed by anything else. And for it to be completely unmoved, it can't have any unfulfilled potential. It must be pure, complete, 100% actuality. And this, for Aristotle, is the ultimate principle of the universe, the prime mover. But here's the really fascinating part. How does this prime mover cause everything to happen? It doesn't push the universe along like some giant engine. Instead, it moves everything by being the ultimate final cause. The whole universe is drawn to it, inspired by its perfection. He replaced the petty, human-like gods of mythology with this perfect, unchanging principle. The entire cosmos is in motion because it's striving toward the perfection of the prime mover.
So, what does this all mean for us? Well, Aristotle's Metaphysics isn't just some ancient text gathering dust on a shelf. It's the foundational blueprint for how the Western world has thought about reality, logic, and knowledge for thousands of years. I mean, just look at the timeline. His system for understanding reality became the absolute bedrock for medieval philosophy and theology. Then, centuries later, the scientific revolution, even while it challenged his physics, was built on the very framework of seeking cause and effect explanations that he pioneered. And even today, philosophers are still grappling with the fundamental questions he was the first one to really systematize.
Think about that. For over 2,300 years, the framework that Aristotle laid out in the Metaphysics has shaped the way we even ask questions about our world. The vocabulary he created, substance, accident, potential, actuality, it's still woven into the very fabric of how we think. We started with Aristotle's idea that we all desire to know, and that this desire begins with wonder. His work doesn't just give you a list of answers, it gives you a much deeper, more profound way to ask questions. So after this quick tour of his incredible project, the real takeaway is this. What puzzles about reality does it make you wonder about?